Shikoyach, you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, we do, and
Okay.
Dovid here from Clay.
Okay. The Balmor, at the end of Mesechus Pesachim, brings a kasha. He says, Yesh shoyalim. Some have a kasha. How come when it comes to achilas matzah, we know that the first night, in Chutz La'aretz, the first 2 nights, before eating the gzayis matzah, we make a bracha. Besides the hamoitzi, we make a bracha. Sheket yishadu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu al achilas matzah. Birchos hamitzvah. But that's only the first night or the first 2 nights. The rest of Pesach, we do not make a bracha before eating matzah. And by Sukkah, Sukkahs, even though they're also the chiyuv of achila b'sukkah is only the first night. Only the first night. There's a mitzvah chiyuv to eat in a sukkah, and still every time we go into a sukkah during the 7 days of sukkahs, and we eat bread, so we make a bracha. Make a bracha. So the Balmor brings that some ask a shaila, how come by sukkahs we make a bracha all 7 days? All 7 days, even though the chiyuv to eat pas in a sukkah is only the first night. Nevertheless, whenever we do eat bread in a sukkah, we make a bracha of alachilas aleisha basukkah. And when it comes to matzah, we only make a bracha. The first night. The rest of Pesach, we do not make any birchas on mitzvah before eating matzah. That's the kasha the Balmor asks. So l'chayra, it's tzarich very hard to understand what the Balmor, what's this kasha all about, because it's no tzushta whatsoever. When it comes to sukkah, inachinami, granted that there's only a chiyuv to eat bread in a sukkah the first night. That's true. But from Deswegen, the Torah says, which means every time I want to eat bread, I'm a chuyev to eat that bread in a sukkah. If a person would eat bread, whatever shia there is, one the kebetza, if he would eat it outside of a sukkah, he is violating a mitzvah, as I say, of a sukkah teisha yamim. And in Mela, that's why you make a bracha. It's just like tzitzis. There's no chiyuv to put on a baguette of dalet kanfis to be the kind of mitzvah of tzitzis. We do, and it's the right thing to do. But there's no chiyuv. There's no chiyuv minat Torah, no chiyuv mirabanan. It's only if once a person is wearing a garment of 4 corners, then he has a mitzvah and a chiyuv to put on tzitzis. Then he make a bracha on that. Because once you're wearing the garment, then it's a chiyuv. Then it's a chiyuv to have tzitzis on that garment. So you make a bracha on that. This is true by sukkah as well. Even though there's no chiyuv to eat bread once you pass the first night, no chiyuv to eat bread, mitzad the mitzvah of sukkah. But if a person does want to eat bread, he's mechuyev to eat it in a sukkah. If he eats the bread outside of the sukkah, he is violating a mitzvah say of a sukkah shul yomim, and that's why you make a bracha. But when it comes to matzah, once you pass the first night, there is no mitzvah at all. You can eat potatoes all 7 days, and you're fine as far as Pesach is concerned. There's no, as long as you don't eat chametz, there is no mitzvah of eating matzah. So why should one make a bracha? What's the tzushta? What's the comparison of matzah kol shiva to sukkah kol shiva? So someone want to say, they want to bring a raya from this kasha to the famous shita of the Gra. The Gra's shita is that even though there's no chiyuv of achilas matzah once you pass the first night, but there is a mitzvah kiyumis. The going holds, and it's not only the going, and the Rishonim was saying this, you say, that from the pasuk, it does say in the pasuk, shiva yamim matzah ishtachelu. So Pashut, many Rishonim learn that the Torah doesn't mean you should eat matzah for 7 days. All the Torah means, don't eat chametz, eat matzah, not chametz. That's what the Torah means to say. But the Goyen learns not like that. The Goyen learns that the Torah is saying that, yes, there's a mitzvah. Even though there is no chiyuv, only the first night there's a chiyuv to eat matzah, but all 7 days there's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah kiyumis. If you do it, you get schar. You don't do it, he's not a Navayon, because the Torah never mechayiv, but it is a mitzvah. It is a mitzvah. It's just like similar to women doing a mitzvah as Seishal Grama. A woman doesn't have to eat the sukkah. She has no mitzvah. It's a mitzvah Seishal Grama. But if she does eat the sukkah, she gets schar. It's a mitzvah kumis. So the Goin says, same thing is true with matzah called shiva. It's taka no chiyuv. Taka no chiyuv to eat in the sukkah. No chiyuv to eat matzah once you pass the first night. But if a person does eat matzah, it is a mitzvah. And Mela, so they want to learn that the Balamah goes with this shit of the Gra. And Mela, that's why he brings this kasha, that why shouldn't you make a bracha? Why shouldn't you make a bracha? Just like you make a bracha, just like you make a bracha on the sukkah called shiva. But this teretz is really not maspik, because it's still no tzushtel, because by sukkah, it's more than by sukkah. Once I'm eating bread, I have a chiyuv to eat that bread in a sukkah. It's not a mitzvah kumis. It's kumis in the sense they don't have to eat bread. But once I'm eating bread, if I would eat that bread outside of a sukkah, I'm mevatla mitzvahs I say. And if I eat it in a sukkah, then I'm a kayim. My chiyuv, it's a chiyuv. Once I'm eating bread, there's a chiyuv to eat it in a sukkah. And that's why you make a bracha. But my matzah, even if we'll say that there's a mitzvah kumis, I get schaf eating matzah, but it's not a tzushel to sukkah. It's not a tzushel to sukkah. My sukkah, once I'm eating bread, it's chiyuvi to eat that bread in a sukkah. My matzah, it's a mitzvah kumis. The Torah says if you eat matzah, you'll get schaf. You'll get schaf for it. It's a mitzvah. You don't have to do it. I'm not an avayim if I don't do it. If I do it, I'll get schaf for it. But that's a mitzvah kumis. For that, you don't make a bracha. It's still not a tushtel. Matzah to sukkah, still not a tushtel. So we have to say that from this Balmo we see different pshat, different than the Gra. We see that the Balmo learns that when it says in the pasuk, shivas yomim matzos techelu, what the pasuk means is like this: if I eat bread on Pesach, that bread must be matzah. That bread must be matzah. And if a person eats chametz, besides being mevatel the issa, the lav of achilas chametz, which is the lav sheish by kares, besides that, I'm mevatel a mitzvah I say of shivas yomim matzah ishtachelu. Not stam, it's a mitzvah to eat matzah, like the Goin says. No, it's once I'm eating bread, there's a chiyuv that bread that I'm eating should be matzah. And if I eat bread that's not matzah, I'm being mevatel mitzvah I say. If that's the pshat, it's mamish like my sukkah. It's mamish like my sukkah, just like my sukkah. I don't have to eat bread, but once I'm eating bread, there's a chiyuv that bread must be eaten in a sukkah. If I eat it outside of the sukkah, I'm a vatla mitzvah say. And that's why when I do eat it in a sukkah, I make a bracha. I'm shaking ishanu and this way stuff. The tzivanu, I'm commanded that the bread that I'm eating must be eaten in a sukkah. So to fake the malamah, that should be true by matzah as well. Yes, I don't have to eat bread. I can eat potatoes, I can eat meat, and I'm fine to do. But once I'm eating bread, there's a chiyuv, a mitzvah say that bread that I'm eating has to be matzah. And if I eat bread that's not matzah, I'm being, besides being over the use of achilas chametz, I'm also being mevatel the mitzvah say of shivas yamim matzah techelu. And in Mela, it's mamish like my sukkah. In fact, about more, why shouldn't you have to make a bracha? Every time I sit down and I eat matzah, any day throughout the Yom Tov of Pesach, I should have to make a bracha because I have a chiyuv that the bread that I'm eating have a chiyuv that bread should be matzah. So if a tak is matzah, I'm being mekayim my chiyuv, just like my sukkah, just like my tzitzis. I should have to make a bracha. That's about Moskash. I found this Yisoid. Afterwards, I found this Yisoid. Someone showed me that this Yisoid state in Avin Neza, or Chaim, Simen Shin Ein Zayin, or Yisdalet. He says this is from the Balmor. He says from the Balmor is Mukach that the mitzvah of Shudam Matzos Tachelu is like we said, it's a mitzvah chiyuvi that if you're eating bread, it's a chiyuv that bread should be matzah. The kasha is like this. The Gemara does say mefurish. What says mefurish? We know that for matzah's mitzvah, it's not enough to eat matzah. Not enough to be matzah. It's got to be matzah shemura. It has to be matzah that was made lishma. It has to be made lishma. The shem matzah's mitzvah. It has to be made l'shem matzah mitzvah. The person eats matzah that's not shemura, was not made l'shem matzah mitzvah. He hasn't eaten chametz, not chametz. He hasn't done anything wrong, but he can't. He's not yaitz the mitzvah. First night of Pesach, first 2 nights, the matzah one eats to be yaitz his chiyuv matzah has to be matzah shemura. It had to be. We learn after the pasuk shmat matzahs has to be matzah shemura. The Gemara says if a person eats but seikoi shel nachrim, matzah was made by a Gentile, kosher matzah. Now, it's matzah, but it wasn't made l'shma. So you can eat as much as you want of that matzah, even the first night, but you're not going to be able to eat mitzvah. Yeah, if you want to be able to eat mitzvah, you have to eat exayis, at least exayis, or matzah shemura. That's the halacha. Now, also, according to the Gra, that even past the first night, even though there's no chiyuv to eat matzah, but there's still a mitzvah kiyumis to eat matzah. So many poskim say that in order to be mekayim that mitzvah kiyumis, you have to have matzah shmura, just like for the first night. In order to be yaitz the mitzvah, the chiyuv of achilas matzah, it's got to be matzah shmura. Same thing applies to all 7 days. If there is a mitzvah kiyumis, all 7 days to eat matzah, it's got to be matzah shmura. Many say this. He was not to eat matzah shmura all Yom Tov today to be mekayim the mitzvah kiyumis of the goy, because he held if it's not matzah shmura, just like the first night, one cannot be mekayim the chiyuv matzah with matzah which is not matzah shmura. Same thing apply all 7 days. If one wants to be mekayim the mitzvah kiyumis of the gra, it's got to be matzah shmura. And many others say that. And many others say the same. You say. Brought down the same Shmuel Salant. Brought down the same Rabbi Zal Meltzer. They all say the same. You say that in order to be mekayim the mitzvah kiyumis of the goy, it's got to be matzah shmura, because it has to be matzah mitzvah. Just like the first night, in order to be mekayim the chiyuv of achilas matzah, the Torah says it's got to be matzah shmura. So who adin? The rest of Pesach, there's no chiyuv matzah, no chiyuv of achilas matzah, but there's a mitzvah kiyumis according to the Gra. That matzah has to be matzah shmura. If that's the case, we have a shtaka kasha. We're saying that the Balmor holds a little bit different than the Gra. It's not just a mitzvah kiyumis. The pshat in Shivas Yom and Matzos Tachelu is that the Torah says if you're eating bread, you don't have to eat bread. You can eat potatoes, you can eat meat, you can eat vegetables, and you're fine. But if you're eating bread, it's got to be matzah. Then you have a chiv, it has to be matzah. If that's the case, it should have to be matzah shmura. The person sits down and he has matzah, which is not matzah shmura. Gemara says, mefurish, it's okay. It's okay. Why is it okay? The Torah says that once eating bread, now you have a chiyuv that it should be matzah, and matzah for mitzvah, for matzah's mitzvah, it's got to be shmura. Otherwise, it's not matzah. As far as matzah's mitzvah is concerned, if it's not shmura, it's matzah. It's matzah, but it's not a kosher matzah. If the Torah says that once eating bread, it's got to be matzah. It has to be matzah's mitzvah. It's got to be matzah shmura. So why is it mutam Pesach to eat seikos shel nachrim Why is it mutter Pesach to eat matzah? That's not matzah's mitzvah. The Torah says that what's granted. I don't have to eat matzah at all. I don't have to eat bread at all. And then it's fine. But once I'm past the first night. But once I am eating bread and matzah is bread, the Torah says, then it's chiv, it's got to be matzah. And l'chorah, that matzah, it's got to be kosher matzah. A kosher matzah is matzah shmura. If it's not shmura, it's not kosher for the mitzvah. So why is it mutter to eat seika shanokim? Why is it mutter to eat matzah that's not shmura matzah the rest of Pesach? If the pshat in the Balmor is like we said, that the Torah is saying it's a chiyuvi, that once eating bread, that is a chiyuv that bread should be matzah. So it got to be matzah, got to be a kosher matzah. If I'm eating matzah which is not shmura, it's not chametz, but it's not a kosher matzah. The Torah said you have to eat kosher matzah. Once eating bread, you have to eat kosher matzah. So what's the heta? What is the heta to eat seika shnoka? That's the kasha. So to answer this kasha, be magdim with two yisoides. One is the yisoid from the Minchas Chinuch, and the other is the yisoid from the Bachber. The Minchas Chinuch says the following yisoid. There's a Tosfos in Zucker. There's a Tosfos in Zucker that asks a kasha. The Gemara has a pasuk that a sukkah gezula is pasuk. By the pasuk, chag sukkah is trasel not gezula. You can't be yaitz the mitzvah of sukkah in a sukkah gezula. Frank says a kasha. What do you need a pasuk for? To sit in the sukkah gezula is a mitzvah babavera. If I take somebody's sukkah against his will, he doesn't want me to sit in the sukkah, and I go steal it, and I sit in that sukkah. So it's pasuk. You can't be yaitz. It's a mitzvah babavera. You can't be yaitz with a mitzvah babavera. So why need a pasuk? Why need a pasuk to passel a sukkah gezula? It's pasel without a pasuk. It's pasel because of the general psul of mitzvah b'aveira. A very fantastic kasha. Look the Minchas Chinuch a teretz, famous teretz. He says like this. He says in Achnami, the first night of Sukkot, where there's a chiyuv to eat a gazayis of bread in a sukkah. Then in Achinami, then it's pashit that you can't be mekayim that chiyuv in a sukkah gzula. You don't need any bzul. You don't need any new psul of sukkah gzula. It's possible because of mitzvah b'aveira. Mitzvah b'aveira disqualifies the ma'aseh mitzvah. Nishkei ma'aseh mitzvah. If it's a mitzvah b'aveira, that's you can't be yaitzu with mitzvah b'aveira. And you wouldn't need any pasuk. You wouldn't need any new pasuk that passes a sukkah gzula. However, the rest of sukkah is where there's no chiyuv to eat in a sukkah. I don't have to eat foods that will be mechayim me to eat in the sukkah. I can eat potatoes and meat and then a small amount of bread. I can eat foods that don't require sukkah. It's only if I do want to eat more than a kibbutz of bread or cake and so on. If I do want to eat that type of food that's mechayim in a sukkah, then I have to eat the sukkah. But Torah was never mechayiv me. Once I'm past the first night, the Torah was never mechayiv me to eat a type of food that will obligate me to eat in the sukkah. If I want to eat that type of food, I got to eat it in the sukkah. So Zok the Minchas Chinuch a yisoid. A chiddush. She says like this. Since I'm not mechuyev to eat, once I'm past the first night, I'm not mechuyev to eat foods that require a sukkah. It's only if I want to eat them, I got to eat them in a sukkah. So let's say I eat a food that requires a sukkah, and I can eat it in a kosher sukkah, but I do it in a way that I do it in a way that I will not be mekayim mitzvah sukkah. Let's say mitzvah b'aveira. Mitzvah b'aveira is not a paslis in the sukkah. Although you have the Minchas Chinuch, others disagree, but he holds that mitzvah b'aveira is not a psul in the cheft of the sukkah. It's a psul in the ma'aseh mitzvah. A mitzvah that's done through an aveira is nitkei ma'aseh mitzvah. It's like doing a mitzvah without kavanah. It's a psul in the ma'aseh mitzvah. Doing a mitzvah above aveira, that's a chesron in the ma'aseh mitzvah. It's not the Minchas Chinuch like this. If there wouldn't be a new psul of sukkah gzula, if once I'm past the first night, if I would eat bread in a sukkah gezula, in a chinami, I won't get any schar for that because it's a mitzvah b'aveira. But sof kol sof, I ate the bread in a kosher sukkah, and once I'm past the first night, since the Torah wasn't mechayiv me to eat in a sukkah, it's only if I'm eating those foods that require a sukkah, the Torah says you got to do it in a sukkah. So kumtais the ikka the Torah wants is not the achila of the sukkah. The ikka the Torah wants is that they shouldn't be in achila chutz sukkah, because Raya Torah never was mechayiv me to eat those foods in a sukkah. It's only if I'm eating those foods, do it in a sukkah. So what does the Torah want over here? You can tachlis is that I shouldn't eat it chutz sukkah. The Torah gave it in the form of a mitzvah say. And yes, if I eat in a sukkah on the third day, fourth day, fifth day, I eat bread in a sukkah, I will get schar because I would make kind of mitzvah say. And if I eat it chutz sukkah, I would mevatl mitzvah say. But if I eat it in a kosher sukkah, but I do it in a way that I cannot get any schar for it, Dr. Minchas Chinuch, but sof kol sof, there was no achila chutz sukkah. Memela, I'm not considered an avayon. I won't get any schar for it. It's a mitzvah b'aveira. You don't get schar for mitzvah. I was not mekayim any mitzvahs b'aveira. But sof kol sof, there was no achila chutz sukkah. I ate it in a kosher sukkah. So memela, there's no kiyum, but there's no bittul mitzvah either. A bittul mitzvah is only if I eat it outside of a sukkah. Then I will mevatl a mitzvah of the sukkah teishu shul yomim. But if I eat it in a kosher sukkah, even though I did it in a way that I cannot be rewarded for it, that there was no kiyum mitzvah, because I did it with the mitzvah b'aveira, which is not a valid mitzvah. But since I never had a chiyuv in the first place to eat this in a sukkah, I could not eat at all. So now, even if I eat and I do it in a way that there's no kiyum mitzvah, but since sof kol sof I ate it in a kosher sukkah, there's no bittul. There's no bittul mitzvah. Bittul mitzvah is only if you eat it chutz sukkah. But now that the Torah says that there's a new psul of a sukkah gzula, that's a paslas in the sukkah. And sukkah gzula is nit kein sukkah. Now, if I eat exayis, if I eat matzah, if I eat bread in a sukkah gezula, it's like eating it chutz sukkah. I ate it in a puzzle sukkah because sukkah psula is a puzzle. It's a psul in the chefs of the sukkah. It's a psul in the chefs of the sukkah. If it's a psul in the chefs of the sukkah, then it's like eating chutz sukkah. So that's why you need a puzzle to puzzle a sukkah gezula. Not for the first night. For the first night, puzzle you don't need any puzzle. Because there I need the Torah machayim me to eat a sukkah. I need a kiyum mitzvah. Sukkah gezula is no kiyum mitzvah. But the rest of sukkahs, where there's no chiyuv to eat in a sukkah. If I don't want to eat bread, I don't have to eat in a sukkah. It's only if I'm eating bread, the Torah wants it to be eaten in a sukkah. So there, as long as I eat it in a sukkah, even if I do it in a way that there's no kiyum mitzvah, mamashal mitzvah b'aveira, if lulay that there'll be a new psul of sukkah gezula, I wouldn't get, but there'll be no violation because sof kol sof, I didn't eat it chutz sukkah. But now that the Torah says that there's a psul of sukkah gezula, which means that the sukkah itself is puzzle, a stolen sukkah is puzzle. So it's not a sukkah. So then if I eat in the sukkah gezula, it's like eating chutz sukkah. So then there's a bittul mitzvah over here. It's like eating chutz sukkah, it's a bittul mitzvah. I learned Dr. Minchas. Okay, so see this you say, still not maspik, because here, what's our kash? Our kash is the point, if according to the Balmor, that the mitzvah of Shivas Yomim, matzah techelu, means that if you're eating bread, it's got to be it's got to be matzah. Eating bread, it's got to be. You don't have to eat bread. You don't have to eat bread. But if you are eating bread, there's a chiyuv that bread should be matzah. So we had a kasha. Okay, she has to be a kosher matzah. She has to be kosher matzah. And if it's not matzah shmura, that's not kosher matzah. That's not kosher matzah. So how is it mutter to eat on Pesach? Matzah is not matzah shmura. More than first you can eat it. Second shalach, you not eat. How's it mutter? But once I'm eating bread, and this is bread, it's got to be matzah. It's got to be a chefso matzah. A chefso matzah for matzah mitzvah is matzah shmura. So how am I not eat matzah that's not shmura? So, so he, so here we have to be massive. And you saw it from the bong there. There's a kasha like this. There's a kasha. There's a Gemara in Pesachim. There's one Pesachim that says, if a Yid brings a korban toida, the korban toida comes together with 40 breads. 40 breads. Of those 40 breads, 30 of them were matzah, 10 were chametz. So a korban toida cannot be brought on Pesach because part of a korban toida is the 10 breads that are chametz. So you can't bring a korban toida on Pesach. Even Erev Pesach, you can't bring a korban toida. That's why we don't say Mizmor Soida. So now, in the Bizman HaMikdash, there was they had a special bakery near the Beis HaMikdash that baked breads l'shem lachmei toida. So a person wants to bring a korban toida. Wants to bring a korban toida. He goes into his bakery, and these bread were baked the shem korban toida. So he went. He had where to purchase the breads that he needed for korban toida. Now came Erev Pesach. So they had leftovers from Erev Pesach onwards. No more korban toidas, but there were leftovers. There were breads that were baked for korban toida. They weren't. They weren't mitzvah same. There's always leftovers. So the Gemara says, what discusses, can you use, if somebody wants to buy those leftover matzahs and use it, pay them by night for the mitzvah of lachilas matzah. So the Gemara says you could. The Gemara says, how can you do it? They weren't baked to Shem matzah's mitzvah. They were baked for lachmei toida. They weren't baked for matzah's mitzvah to be mekayim the mitzvah of erev toichel matzahs. That's not why they were baked. So Gemara says yes, because when they baked those matzahs, they knew that there's going to be leftovers. So they had in mind that whatever's left over should be baked the Shem matzah's mitzvah for Pesach. They had that in mind. They had in mind that if there's leftovers, those leftovers should be baked the Shem matzah's mitzvah of erev toichel matzahs. Let's look at the Gemara. They didn't know. They of course didn't know which ones are going to be left over. They just sold, and came out of Pesach. There were leftovers. Now, so fake the minchas chinuch. Here's a halacha, much like get. Person, Sefer writes a get. Person writes a get for an isha. It's got to be written l'shma. Just like matzah got to be made l'shma, the get has to be written l'shma, which means the Sefer has to know who he's writing it for. If Sefer writes a get, he puts in a name, puts in a Ruvain, Rachel, and then he waits for Ruvain or Rachel that needs they need a get with that name. No good. It's no good because it wasn't written l'shma, even though it happened to be the right name. Or let's say he wrote a get for a certain couple, Ruvain and Rachel, and then after he wrote the get, they changed their mind, they're not divorced. They made shalom, no divorce. Okay, so he has this get left over. Then a while later, a few months later, comes another couple with the same names. So he said he had already made get for them. No good. Can't use that get for them because this get was written for a different Rachel, a different Ruvain. That's not the Shema. A get has to be written for that Ruvain and that Rachel who are going to be using the get. It's got to be written for the Shema. What about the following scenario? Let's say a man has two wives. He has two wives. They're able to have two wives, and both have the same name. He has two wives. Both have the name Rachel, same name. So he comes to a Seif happens to be in town, and he tells the Seif, "Listen, I'm gonna be divorcing one of these two wives. I'm not sure yet which one. Two is too many. I'm going to be divorcing one of the two. So do me a favor, they both have the same name. So write a get with the name Rachel and have in mind that whichever one I decide, next week I'm going to decide, whichever Rachel I decide to divorce next week, I want this get to be written for that one. Is that get kosher or not? So Gemara says this is totally in the famous shaila of yesh breira or ein breira. The old yesh breira, which means that if I decide next week which one, we say huvra afraid that this was the one that was aimed today already. You know, today I didn't know yet. Sefer didn't know yet which rachel he's going to be divorcing, but he's writing it for whichever one is aimed now to whichever rachel is going to end up. Whichever rachel he's going to decide next week, and we say yesh breira that whatever he decides next week, it's huvra afraid that this was the one. And to get his kosher, it's called lishma. But the Gemara says if you hold ein breira, then we say that even though he decides next week which one, we don't say huvra davar mafreya that this was the one that was able to be divorced. No, maybe not. It's a big sugya. But if you hold ein breira, the Gemara says it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You have to. It's got to be clear right now. You can't decide next week or even tomorrow and have it work with mafreya. At the time when the Sefer writes again, he's got to know which rachel he's writing again for. You can't say whichever one I decide tomorrow, that's the one who should be that's the one who I'm writing again for right now. No, it's got the old ein breira. It's got to be mevura right now, which is the one that the get is being written for. And we pass in the halacha by deraises we hold ein breira. For drabanans we hold yesh breira. For deraises we hold ein breira. So this get shayla deraisa. So this get would not be kosher. If that's the case, how does it work? We say that the one that bakes the lachmei toida, the reason why the leftovers could be used for the mitzvah of achilas matzah leil Pesach, because when they bake the lachmei toida, when they make the lachmei toida, they have in mind, they know there's going to be leftovers. So they have in mind whatever is left over, I'm doing the Shem Matzah's mitzvah of the mitzvah of Be'erev Teichel Matzahs. But that's Bereira. I don't know now which ones are going to be left over. So what am I saying? Whatever is going to be left over tomorrow, whenever, next week, whatever be left over, I want now to be baked the Shem Matzah's mitzvah of Pesach, of Erev Teichel Matzahs. That's Bereira. And we all aim Bereira. Why is that any different than writing a get and saying I want to have in mind the rachel that I'm going to decide tomorrow? That's no good. We pass in ein breira. So why should this be good? There's also ein breira. I don't know now which matzahs are going to be left over. I don't know which ones are going to be left over. So I have in mind now that if everyone's going to end up being left over, they should be made now the Shem Matzah's mitzvah of Erev Teichel Matzahs. How does that work? Why is it any different than a get? That to be totally that to be ein breira. It shouldn't work. Avoid fake them into Dr. Bach Be'er Teretz. And he said like this. He said a very big chiddush. He says the din of lishma by matzah is different than the din of lishma by get. By get and everywhere else where there's a din of lishma, it's a din in the chefsa. But the get has to be made lishma. If you don't make a get lishma, the get is puzzle. The get is puzzle. It's just like you write tefillin, write Sefer Torah. It's got to be written l'shma. Make tzitzis has to be made. You can't just take any strings and use it for tzitzis. They have to be made l'shem mitzvah tzitzis. Otherwise, the tzitzis are puzzle. It's a psul in the tzitzis. If you don't write a Sefer Torah l'shma, you don't write tefillin l'shma. You don't write a get l'shma. It's a puzzle again. It's the l'shma is chal. The l'shma is chal in the get. The lishma is chal in the tefillin, in the Sefer Torah, in the tzitzis. It's a chalois that's chal. These tzitzis or this get was made l'shem this isha, and only that type of get is kosher. Lishma by matzah, Zucker Bach Be'er, is not a din in the matzah. It's not chal in the matzah at all. It's chal not a din in matzah. It's similar to the din of mitzvah shvichas kavanah. Just like when you do a mitzvah. We hold mitzvah kavanah, which means if a person reads Kriya Shema in one, and he wasn't mechavan l'shem mitzvah Kriya Shema, he happened to be reading Parshas Veschanan, happened to be learning the Parsha of Shema. He said the whole Parsha of Shema, but he wasn't mechavan to do it l'shem mitzvah Kriya Shema. He's not yaitzer because mitzvah kavanah. That's not a din in the chef, so that's a din in Kiyum mitzvah. This is how mitzvah has to be done. If the mitzvah is not done with kavanah l'shem mitzvah, it's not a mitzvah. The din of Lishma by matzah is very similar to that din of mitzvah kavanah. The only chiddush is the Torah being machadish. Not only is it necessary to have kavanah when you're actually doing the mitzvah of eating matzah, which is also true. Why do you have to have kavanah? Mitzvah kavanah. The Torah machadish. Even the asiyas hamatzah has to be done with kavanah. That's a din of Lishma. It's not a din of Lishma. It's chal in the matzah. The matzah does not become a different matzah if it's made Lishma or it's not made Lishma. It's not a din that's chal in the matzah. It's a din that's in the asiyas hamatzah. This is how the matzah has to be made, and if it's not made this way, the asiyah is not kosher. It's very similar, he says, to mitzvah kavanah. The Mela Zucker Bachber. When is there a chesaron of breira or ain't breira? That's when you need a chalois in the chefsa. So then, in order for the lishma to be chal in the chefsa of the get, let's say, it's got to be claw b'shas you're writing the get. You can't have leil and mafreya. That's not going to work. We need something to be chal in the chefsa of the get, of the tefillin, whatever it may be. It's got to be claw now. We don't say who mafreya. But by matzah, it's not nothing is chal in the matzah. Nothing is chal in the matzah. It's a din in the asiyah. This is how it has to be made. Dr. Bachber, for that, even a brevedike kavanah is maspik. That's his yisod. For the din, for kavanah, when it's not a lishma that has to be chal in the matzah. Got to make the matzah into an undershot matzah, a matzah that was made lishma. No, nothing is chal in the matzah. Matzah is the same. Yeah, lishma, no lishma, it's double matzah. It's only a tanai how to make the matzah, how to bake it, how to knead it, how to harvest it. It's a tanai in the asiyas matzah. For that, there's no problem of breira. Even if the shas you make it's not clear yet, it's first going to become clarified later on. It's good enough for asiyah. If nothing has to be chal in the chefs of the matzah, even a breira to get one is good enough. So if that's the case, feed this yisod of the Bachber, we have a wonderful teretz. We had a kasha. That according to the Balamah that learns that the mitzvah of Yom Tov Matzah is one just cue me like they're going, but it's a din that if you're eating bread, it has to be matzah. It has to be matzah. You don't have to eat bread, but eating bread has to be matzah. So we ask if that's the case, it should have to be a kosher matzah. It should have to be baked lishma, because if it's not baked lishma, that's not kosher for matzah's mitzvah. So why is it mutter? Why is it mutter to eat b'tzekel shenochim? Once eating bread, and this is bread, it should have to be matzah. It should have to be a kosher matzah. So if I eat matzah, it's not kosher. Why am I not violating the mitzvah say of Shil Yom Tov Matzah? But if we say like the Minchas Chinuch, and we say like the Bachber, it's Zayam Yushiv, because since it's not a chiv to eat bread, I don't have to eat bread. So as long as I eat, just like he says by sukkah, as long as I eat in a kosher sukkah, even though I wasn't mekayim the mitzvah, I'm not violating here also. As long as I eat a kosher matzah, I was saying now that even if it was baked lishma, it's not a chesaron in the matzah. But the din of lishma, by matzah is not like by gittin or by anywhere else where it's got to be chal in the chefsa. No, it's not chal in the chefsa. There's no matzah. Chalal not a din in the matzah. It's the same matzah. Yeah, lishma, no lishma. It's the same matzah. It's a din in the asiyah. The asiyah is not a kosher asiyah if it's not done with kavanah, if it's not done lishma. If that's the case, so just like the Minchas Chinuch says, that if there wouldn't be a psul of sukkah gzula, if the whole psul would be only as mitzvah b'aveira, it wouldn't be a problem. Because in a chami, I won't get schaf eating in a stolen sukkah. It's mitzvah b'aveira. But so I ate it in a kosher. Sukkah. There was no achila chutz sukkah. There's no bittul mitzvah. Who did over here? In Ochrami, if I eat the second son nochrim, schar I won't get for that. It's not made with shvat. But since the psul is not a psul in the matzah, I ate a kosher matzah. It just wasn't made the way the Torah wants me to make it. In order to be able to be mekai my mitzvah, it's got to be made. It's got to be made l'shma, and it wasn't made. It wasn't made l'shma. Yes, certain nasiya. Schar I won't get, but a bittul mitzvah is not because I ate matzah. I didn't eat something which is not matzah. It's a kosher matzah, 100% kosher. Even if it wasn't baked l'shma, the matzah is 100% kosher. It's a kosher matzah. My asiya wasn't a valid asiya, so I won't get schar. I won't get schar. I won't get schar. What about matzah gzula? I see. Matzah is also possible. Matzah has to be lachem. Matzah gzula is like a puzzle because there's a din. Matzah has to. I have to own matzah. If I don't own matzah, it's puzzle. You can't use that. That's a lacha that you have to own matzah. So matzah gzula. Oh, in matzah gzula. Oh, so you're asking a good kasha. So you're asking a good kasha. So matzah gzula, it'll come out of chiddush taki, right? The person eats matzah gzula, so that's possible. That's possible. What about if I eat matzah by somebody else? I don't eat my own matzah. But the pshat is, if somebody invites me, it becomes mine. It becomes mine. So it's lachem. So it's not possible. That's a good point. If it would be shach eat somebody else's matzah, so it's a psul na matzah because there is the din of lacha and matzah also there is the din of lachem. But you have to say, many say this that if somebody invites me and he gives me his matzah and he lets me eat it, so he's giving it to me. It's mine. It becomes mine. So it's not possible. So if we learn like the Yisod of the Minchas Chinuch, plus we learn like the Bapieit, that the Shema is not a din in the matzah. Matzah is the double matzah. The Shema is only a chesar in the asiya. It passes the asiya. So in I won't get schar for eating matzah that was not baked the Shema. But some because it's a kosher matzah, so bittul mitzvah you won't have. The first night when there's a chiyuv to eat matzah. So then, if it's not made with shema, I wasn't become my chiyuv, and first night I have to become my chiyuv. Turn mechayim to eat matzah. The rest of Pesach, where there's no chiyuv to eat matzah. In Achlami, once I eat bread, there is a chiyuv. Once I eat bread, it has to be matzah. But for that, as long as it's a kosher matzah, even though it's done in a way that I won't be rewarded, there's no kiyum mitzvah. The item was done; it was not done lishma, so there's no kiyum mitzvah. Because Torah wants for the kiyum mitzvah, the Torah wants it to be made lishma, and if it's not made lishma, that there's a sort of kavan over there, and I won't get any schar for it. But some I ate a chefso matzah. The matzah is kosher. So it's exactly the same as eating the sukkah gzula if there wouldn't have been a psul of sukkah gzula. It's exactly the same. If I eat matzah, it will not make the shema. It's very similar to mitzvah b'meira. I won't get schar for it. But a bittul mitzvah you don't have. Since some I ate matzah, I ate a chefso matzah. Even though I did it in the way that there's no kiyum mitzvah, but I did eat a chefso matzah, so there won't be schar for it. But a bittul mitzvah there's not. So it comes out very good. Comes out the Balma. If we hold like the Minchas Chinuch and we hold like the Bapieit, these two Yisaitas together will give us an understanding of the shit of the Balma. Now, we mentioned the shit of the Goy. We mentioned the shit of the Goy. That even that the mitzvah means all 7 days. So the question is, what does that mean? Does that mean, according to the Goyim, every single gezayis of matzah a person eats in the kind of mitzvah? Or no, it's one gezayis per day. The Torah says eat matzah 7 days, so there's got to be so there's a mitzvah of achila kol shiva. So as long as I eat one gezayis every single day, I would mekayim the mitzvah of shil yom matzahs, shil yom techel matzahs. But that's it, one gezayis per day, but not every gezayis. Now, according to the Balma, it's pashut that every gezayis eat. I guess not, because according to the Balma, the pshat in the mitzvah is that when I eat bread, I have a chiyuv. then it should be matzah. So every time I eat bread, if I eat 10 gezeisim, every gezais, I'm a time the mitzvah of achilas matzah, because that is the din. Whenever you eat bread, gotta be not just like a sukkah. Sukkah every shir achila in time mitzvah, because that's the din. Then is that when you eat bread, gotta be in a sukkah. You eat bread on Pesach, gotta be matzah. But according to the Goyen, that's not the pshat. It's just a mitzvah. It's just a mitzvah kiyumis. Mitzvah kiyumis. Nothing. It's a mitzvah kiyumis. It's a mitzvah kiyumis. So then maybe it's a mitzvah kiyumis to have an achila for 7 days. So once I ate the gzais today, I would be kind of that mitzvah. To eat more than that, that's maybe nothing. Can eat potatoes? That's nothing already. There's an achila for 7 days. Just like the first night, eat one gzais, get to the mitzvah. That's it. Eat more than that. That's it. You kind of mitzvah of erev tzorich matzahs. So after the mitzvah of eating 7 days, so every day you eat, you have mitzvah eating 7 days, but maybe it's only one gzais per day. Now, or maybe not. Maybe every gzais is the mitzvah. Now, there's a Mishnah Berurah in Siman Tov Reish Lamed Tes. Siv Kotten Chadalet. Mishnah Berurah there says he's misupik. In misupik he says, "L'fishi yadua das hagra." It's known the shit of the gra that it's a mitzvah to eat matzah all 7 days, like the passages of the pasuk of Shul Yamim Teichel Matzahs. The chiyuv, the mitzvah say only the first night, but the rest of Pesach it's a mitzvah balma, not a chiyuv. So what about Sukkos? What about Sukkos? Does that mitzvah kiyumi apply to Sukkot or not? So many wonder what this Mishmor means. And Zucker is pashut, even without the gra. Of course, every gzais eat on Sukkos. Every gzais eat on Sukkos. Of course, it's a mitzvah. Like we said before, the Torah said mefurish. Sukkos taste shil yamim. I don't have to eat bread, but if I eat bread and I eat a shia, one the kabeitza, there's a mitzvah to eat the sukkah. Avana gets that. What's this suffering if the going to mitzvah applies to sukkah? Of course it does. Even if you don't agree to the gra on Pesach. Let's say, like the Rishonim, there is no matzah. There's no mitzvah at all to eat matzah the rest of Pesach. Matzah and potatoes are the same. Once you pass the first night, there's no shum mitzvah to eat matzah more than potatoes. But on sukkahs, of course, you get cham. If you eat bread, if I would eat it outside the sukkah, I'd be violating a mitzvah. A mitzvah that say, if I eat it in the sukkah, I get cham. Of course, you get cham. You without the grow. What's mishmur stuff? The teretz is, many say this. Warren are going to Shachs itself, said this, others say. You see from this Mishmura when we say, according to the Gra, there's a mitzvah kiyumis to eat all 7 days. So what does that mean? Before we said we compared it to Nosh. To women, when it comes to mitzvah seishman grama, even though they're not mechuyev, they do it, they get schar. Ain't a mitzvah leisa. So this is similar to extra credit. But that's not the pshat. That's wrong. Mishmura does not, in Medag Mishmura, it's more than that. By an Isha, let's say in Sukkot. Isha doesn't want to eat in Sukkot. Isha doesn't want to eat in Sukkot. Doesn't want to eat in Sukkot. So it's fine. She doesn't have to eat in Sukkot. So Isha gets hot. 24 gets hot. No. But here, when the Goyen says that the mitzvah eat 7 days in a Sukkah, he means that you're not in a vayan if you don't. But the Torah wants you to do it the chatchila. It's not just extra credit. The Torah wants you. That's Lashon Mishmur also. Mitzvah l'chatchila le'echol pas kol 9 yomim. It's a mitzvah chatchila. You should do it. You're not in a vayan if you don't do it, but you should do it. The Ratzon Hashem is that you eat 7 days in a sukkah. You eat 7 days matzah. Eat 7 days matzah. That's not the going. It's not just an extra credit mitzvah like a woman mitzvah says man grama. Torah doesn't say anywhere that she should. No, doesn't have to. Women don't say Kriya Shema. They don't have to. If they do, they get schar for it. Say Kriya Shema bisman, they get schar for it. They should say Kriya Shema to Mikal Malchus Shemaim, yes, but as far as the mitzvah Kriya Shema is concerned, they don't have to. If they do, they'll get schar for it. By matzah, according to the Gra, it's not. They should do it. You should do it. You should do the chatchila. The Torah says you're not in a vayon if you don't do it, but you should do it. Torah wants to do the chatchila. Maybe the Mishmura in the sukkah. What about sukkah? Avada, if you eat in the sukkah, you get schar. It's a mitzvah, of course, because once you're eating bread, you have a chiv to eat in the sukkah, you get schar for it. But let's say a person doesn't want to eat bread. Doesn't want to eat bread. Wants to eat potatoes. So, mitzad the mitzvah of sukkah, not doing anything wrong. No mitzvah chatchila to go eat go eat bread in the sukkah all 7 days. No such mitzvah. But yes, if you're the Grav that holds it by matzah, there is a mitzvah chatchila to eat every single day a gzais of matzah. Which when the suppik is that, does that apply to sukkah also? Do we say that l'chatchila every single day you should eat? Not mechuyev, but you should l'chatchila eat a sheer bread in a sukkah. That's his suffix. Avada you eat, you get schar, but that's not the shaila. The goin's mitzvah is one just that you get schar, extra credit. No, you should do it. L'chatchila, you should do it. If he's there, it's for sure only one gzayis a day. Otherwise, what's the share? You should do what should you do? Eat all day long? Of course not. So if he's there, that's not just extra credit. You should do it. So what should you do? There should be an achila called shiva, which means one gzayis per day. Can't be otherwise. Otherwise, what does it mean? It should be constantly eating. That has no pshat. So if he's this understanding of the gra that you should do l'chatchila, it means there should be an achila called shiva, which means every day you should eat one gzayis. On the other hand, we do find you do it that the gra on the last day of Pesach. The last day of Pesach, he ate a certain meal because he wanted to chaperayim nochamal the mitzvah of achilas matzah. What do you mean? He ate the suit. He had the suit already in the morning. He ate a guys that day, and still he wanted to chaperayim. He wanted to chaperayim more. So you see that every guy is the mitzvah. So you have to say this. You have to say that there's two in Yonah. Just like the first night, even though the chiyuv is yoytz with one gzayis, but many who say that there's the chiyuv of yoytz with one gzayis, but every extra gzayis you eat is a kiyuv mitzvah. So the mitzvah of eating 7 days is gzayis the minimum. Minimum you should do. One that's up to you, but you do get schar. You get schar for every gzayis. The din l'chatchila of eating eating matzah every single day, that's one gzayis. That din of l'chatchila. That din of l'chatchila of eating matzah every single day, that's a gezayis. That's one gezayis. But in addition to that, there's also a mitzvah yumi, which that's not like extra credit. But you don't, there's no chatchila to eat more than one gezayis per day. But there is a mitzvah. Every gezayis is not a mitzvah, and that's why they're going. And the last day, before the end of Pesach, want to chaperayim noch a mitzvah. You have to say that two dinim in that mitzvah. Kiyumis of the gra, there's two dinim. There's one din of eating of l'chatchila. One should eat exercise every single day. There should be a kiyum of eating matzah for 7 days. Should be there once that l'chatchila. Not a chiyuv, but there once that to be done l'chatchila, and so that's enough one exercise per day. In addition, every exercise eat is a mitzvah kiyumis. That's an optional mitzvah, but the schaf every exercise eat. Those happen from the gra. Okay. Okay, Akan.
Thank you very much, HaRav.
So no, I'm sorry, I'm just reading the chat questions. Let's see. About Matzah Shira, somebody asked. Matzah is Pesach Shanachim different than a Matzah Shira?
What's the heta to eat Matzah Shira?
Yeah, good kasha actually.
Yes, that is a good kasha.
Are you out to the guys chiyuv? Are you out to the guys mitzvah if you eat matzah?
Pasha's not. There's a deal about that. I think Mara Naguin of Chaim Kiyasi Tzal says you could be out to matzah shira. That in the Sefer the Derech Sicha he says that, but I think many hold not like that. Pshutei, you need lechem oini.
What's the diyun?
The diyun is the lechem oini is only a tie for the first night. But let's assume you're not yaitz with matzah shira, the going to mitzvah. Then you do have a good kasha. What's that to eat matzah shira? That's right. So I once worked on that. There's a search for Chaim of matzah shira. that needs even. That's a good kasha. That needs even. There's a section from Chaim Matzah Shir that I think would answer this. I think he wants to say that Matzah also did in the Gavra. That's a good kasha. Think about that.
Okay, I think since that's a good kasha, and once it's a good kasha, we will leave it at that, because I think those